We're working with wood today, but no hammers or saws required on this episode of the Scrapbook Showgram. Hi, I'm Sandi Genovese and welcome to the Scrapbook Showgram. Well, today we're going to actually be decorating a wooden picture frame. And I know I normally work in paper. I wanted to see how well the two would mix, paper and wood. And I discovered I added some paint as well, but they work together really well. Here is the picture frame that we're going to make. And I'm going to start by turning it around so you can see the way that it stands up is just with this little wooden dowel. It sits in this hole in the back, and when it comes packaged in the store, this is just shrink wrapped with a little dowel sitting inside. It's incredibly simple and wonderfully easy and very inexpensive. So this one that I finished, I happened, because I have Isabella's baby picture in here, I decided that it would be nice to have the colors be sort of soft and baby-like, so I decorated mine with vellum, which once again, I wasn't sure, would it stick well? It sticks beautifully. So if you'll notice, I've got vellum stickers here and a little rub on here. But in order to start, I wanted to paint the frame. So let me show you how I began. Here is how the frame, although it was shrink wrapped, how it came from the store. It was from Michael's. Believe it or not, $3. I mean, you just can't beat it. And it's even already sanded. Now, if I turn it over, you can see that the way that the picture goes in and out is just these little metal pieces. You fold them up and out of the way in order to put a picture in and out, and then when the picture is back, I would just take and bend them all back down. You've probably worked with picture frames that have these same mechanisms before. It's, like I said, it's wonderfully ready to go, but I did notice there was this one little thing in there, and I'm going to try just see if it'll just work its way out with a pair of scissors, which it's getting most of it, but I am going to, I think any place where you have an actual piece that's sticking out as much as this, I would go back with a little piece of sandpaper, which I just happen to have right here. And any place like that, you can use sandpaper to sand away any pieces like that that might be sticking out. But by and large, I mean, I didn't have actually any of those on the first frame. So once you have any little rough edges sanded, then it's time to paint. So all I did was, this is paint by Delta. The color that I chose is buttercream. I really wanted a neutral sort of a color. I do have a little palette, a plastic palette for paint, and it takes quite a bit to do. I'm going to do the front and the sides, and then I'm going to use the sponge applicator. It's a really simple way to apply the paint. So what I'm going to do is just simply ook it up, and then I'll go back and paint. Unfortunately, the color of the wood is not a whole lot different than the color I'm painting, but putting the paint on the wood really finishes everything. It makes it look less rustic and more finished. And as I said, everything that I placed on it, it stuck really well. So I don't know if maybe it stuck better because it was painted. I didn't try one without paint, so I don't really know. When you're painting, you do want to go, when you're painting with a brush, you want to be sure you go with the grain of the wood. And I'm just, right now, I'm going to the edge. I'm going to eventually go back and paint the edges as well. But for right now, I'm going to just get the front of the frame all painted up. So as I'm finishing up painting, I'm just kind of going over the whole thing to make sure that there are no places where I have any chunks. It does look like, I don't know if the paint all soaked in or I just need a little bit more right at the top. It could have been that I just missed it when I did it the first time. It just so happens that the wood is such a similar color to the paint that I chose that it's not obvious like it would be if you had a really different color. And already, this paint dries so fast, already what I painted here is dry, and I'm just blending it with the wetter paint. You'll be surprised how quickly, in about 5 minutes, this is going to be ready. You also do want to paint around the outside edge and around the inside edge as well. I'm not going to do that now because I don't want to wait for that to dry in order to show you how to apply, or to begin to apply, the decoration to the frame. Okay, so the frame is dry. I timed it. It really was 5 minutes. It really is quick drying. So once the frame is dry, now it's time to embellish it. And I'm going to start with the bands that divide the frame sort of in half. And that is with these vellum stickers. And in order to get them straight, what I've done is I've taken and I've created a pattern. So here is a paper pattern, and I'm going to use this as a guide. When it's flush with the bottom of the frame, it's going to give me a nice straight edge. So I'm going to take the stickers that, in this case, this is a sticker strip, and I'm going to use just some of the embellishments on here, but I think it's actually going to be easiest if I trim it into smaller pieces. So I'm going to pull off the dots and make sure that my guide is flush with the bottom of the frame, and then I will line the first edge with the interior edge where the photo's going to go. Make sure that this is just straight with this, and then I can go right around the edge and just have it go right to the back. Now I'm going to cut off a similar chunk of this long strip so that I have the polka dots section more manageable. And I want, once again, to definitely use this. Now it's not just a question of getting it straight, but I want for this stripe to look like it continues in the same place. So once again, I'm going to line up an edge with the inside, the little photo spot, place it, press it down, and then I'll go around the edge and once again around the corner. Now I used a couple of sections from this same sticker strip. So for instance, this one, I'll try to use my tweezers. It might make it easier for you to be able to see when I'm sticking it down. So I'm going to start with this edge over here, and because the polka dot, the blue polka dot is straight, now it becomes my guide for everything else. I can make sure that this just tucks up right against the polka dot, and I'm just going to go around, make sure that it, once again, that it just sits right next to the dots. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pull off this part of the sticker strip, line it up so it hits the edge, as well as, and I'll do the same thing with my tweezers so I don't have to put my hand in your way. So line it up so that it's straight and also flush with this edge here. Go around all the way around the edge and onto the back, keeping it straight. And then the final element, I used this pink that is just, I'll turn it so you can see it. It's got a heart, and I want to make sure that I position it so that the hearts are right side up. So I'm going to start again, and this time I'm putting it underneath that blue edge. And I'm going to go around like so. And let me pull off another chunk of that same sticker. Peel it off. I'll do the same thing. I'll see if, maybe I can do it without the tweezers. Get it so that it's flush on the end and tucked up against the blue, and then wrap it around. So this is going to give me the 3 bands that are basically in the middle. of the frame. Now what I have, the bottom section is stripes. I'll pull this up so you can see. Notice that they're not cut on a paper cutter. They're really hand cut. I wanted that sort of whimsical look that feels a little more childish to me. So what I did was I took yellow vellum, I ran it through a Xyron machine because that makes the adhesive be solid, and that means it won't show through something as translucent as vellum is. But before I cut out my strips, let me show you a really great tip. If I turn this over, I've cut away a little portion of the backing. What that does is it's going to leave me a piece at the bottom that's going to make it really easy for me to remove the backing. Sometimes the hardest part is getting the backing to come free of the vellum. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut, I'll cut 3 of the little stripes here to get us, notice I'm purposely trying to go wavy. I'm exaggerating the whole idea of waviness because I really want it to be obvious that they weren't cut on a paper trimmer. Now, I'm going to, notice now that I have this spot removed, it's so easy to peel off the backing. And I'm going to go ahead and I want to place it in the middle. So I'm going to take a ruler, and if I measure so that I measure the width of my frame, what it is, it's 7 3/4. It's a little bit easier if I have an 1/8 overlapping on both ends of the ruler, meaning that now 4 inches is going to be the middle section. So I'm going to start at the 4-inch mark, move the ruler out of the way, and just drape this down. I will go back and trim that off, but first let me place a couple more down. If I take and I peel the backing off, now instead of going this way, I'm going to go to this edge and create a stripe that is on one of the ends. And I'm, trying to roughly have it seem fairly straight, but it's the beauty of using this whole wavy stripe idea. If they're not perfectly straight, it doesn't matter because they don't look like they're supposed to be perfect because they're not perfectly cut paper strips. Now, in order to get this last section, I'm going to turn it over and cut this off because I'm going to be able to use it now for this last place. Now I've come in a little bit and I can come in for the other section in order to be able to get those stripes fairly evenly placed by starting with the middle and then the outside edge and then moving in toward the center. You'll find that it's a lot easier if you're trying to create a geometric pattern like this. I'm going to snip off the excess. What you would then do is repeat and do the same thing on this edge. To look back at my original, notice the next thing we're going to do is create the polka dots. Well, I kind of wanted that same idea, that same sense. I didn't want perfectly punched circles. I wanted them to look kind of wobbly, the same way the stripes did. So what I did was I just took, you can see I've cut a bunch out, and I'll take and I'll cut another one. And I'm just going to hand cut circle shapes. They're just like lopsided circles basically, and I cut them in lots of different sizes. If you want to make sure that the dots are a certain size, you could punch a pattern like this. Here I've punched out a circle. I wanted to make sure that at least one of my circles was this large, because if I hold it up, you can see that I've used a rub-on to create the word baby, and I want to make sure that at least one of my dots is large enough that I can put a word and have the whole word show. So once you've cut those circles out, I'm going to just remove the backing and I'll place them down, and you can place them lightly so that if you decide that you want to move one, it's really easy to do. It also, I think it looks best if some of the circles go off the edge. It once again just gives you that kind of random, it feels truly like you just threw a bunch of dots on and that's how they landed. So I would continue with the rest of the dots. You can see when I've got the rest of the dots. But I want to stop now because I want to show you how to create the rub-on element on this dot here. I wanted a word that I couldn't find. I wanted it to fit inside my polka dot. So there's lots of choices. Here I could take this little word that's baby in French, but since I'm not French, I think maybe I'm going to take this sheet. Let me put this against the black so you can see the choices. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm just going to cut out just the word baby. I don't want baby boy. This is for Isabella after all. So all I'm going to do is with the scissors, I'm going to go in and just trim around and pull off just the piece that I want, just the word baby, which is actually how I did the first one. The first one was a phrase that said beautiful baby, and even though the baby is beautiful, I didn't have room for that whole thing. So what I'm going to do is position this right over the polka dot where I want it to show, and I have to turn it to me to see if it's fairly straight. Ooh, pretty straight. Although, once again, when you do the elements like the stripes are wavy and the dots are kind of wavy, it makes it so that any of the elements can be less than perfect and less than straight, and it will seem like it just goes along with your theme. So at this point, all I'm going to do is just rub. It comes, you know, with the little popsicle stick, and I know my hand is probably in the way, but I have to hold it in position in order to get this. Once you've rubbed everywhere, what I like about the rub-ons is it does allow you to peel off this backing sort of gradually. And if there's some place that doesn't, well, of course, this has to be the one time that it comes out perfectly. But let me show you, if it turns out that there is a little place where the rub-on didn't transfer, you can just take the white jelly roll pen and go back and fill in any little places, and it looks just as good as new. So that when you're finished, you now have a really cool looking label that you've added to the wooden frame, and it's as permanent as the frame as well. So if we go back and look at the finished one, you can see just, I mean, in just a very few minutes, we were able to paint it, embellish it, and even title it to create this really cool looking frame. Now, this one I painted in this sort of cream color, but I wanted to see how it would work with the dark colors. So here is an example where the frame is painted black. Same idea. It still has the little wooden dowel that holds it up in the back. But notice in this case, this is completely just rub-ons. All of the decoration in this case are rub-ons, and it's very effective as well. It's very bold and graphic. I was surprised at how quickly and easily they went together and how great they looked. A wooden frame, it's just as easy to decorate as paper. It's just that it's likely to last longer. Remember, I love hearing your comments. Be sure to share us with your scrapbooking friends, and if you haven't subscribed, it'd be great if you did. Bye for now.